I always prided myself on being the smartest person in the boardroom. As the CEO and founder of a rapidly growing health tech startup, my life was a high-speed blur of pitch decks, venture capital meetings, and aggressive expansion. My husband, Arthur, was a senior compliance auditor for a mid-level accounting firm. He was meticulous, boring, and perfectly content living in the background. While I was on magazine covers being hailed as the next big thing in tech, Arthur was at home, highlighting tax discrepancies on spreadsheets. I viewed him as a stable, predictable safety net. But a safety net isn't exciting. Excitement was Julian. Julian was the managing partner of the venture capital firm leading my startup's massive $50 million Series B funding round. He was ruthless, charismatic, and flew me on his private jet for strategy sessions in Aspen. Our affair was intoxicating. I funded our secret weekend getaways using a hidden corporate expense account, mislabeling the luxury trips as R&D site visits and investor relations. I was a master of corporate structuring. I knew exactly how to bury the paper trail. For what I thought was the final stretch of the fundraising round, I was untouchable. Arthur was completely clueless. In fact, he was incredibly supportive. He cooked my dinners, ironed my power suits, and constantly told me how proud he was of my upcoming $50 million buyout. I didn't realize that Arthur wasn't supporting my dream. He was building my gallows. The climax of my entire career was a private, VIP closing dinner hosted at a 5-star Michelin restaurant downtown. The entire board of directors was there, along with Julian, my executive team, and our corporate lawyers. Arthur was invited as my +1. I wore a custom-tailored designer gown. Julian and I exchanged secret, knowing glances across the table. The $50 million term sheet was sitting on the center of the table, already signed by me that morning, finalizing the deal and cashing out my founder's equity for $15 million. To Sloan, Julian said, raising his crystal champagne flute. A brilliant founder, a visionary, and a master of execution. The table erupted into applause. I smiled, feeling like an absolute god. Then Arthur stood up from his chair. He gently tapped his spoon against his glass. "I'd like to say a few words as well," Arthur said, his voice mild and perfectly polite. "Sloan is a master of execution, but as an auditor, I've always believed that the true brilliance of a CEO is found in their metadata." The smiles around the table faltered slightly. I looked at Arthur, a sudden icy knot forming in my stomach. Arthur pulled a sleek, leather-bound folder from his briefcase and placed it directly on top of the signed $50 million term sheet. 3 months ago, I was helping Sloan update her personal laptop when I noticed a routing discrepancy in the firm's expense software. Arthur addressed the board, his tone completely conversational. "I discovered a secondary ledger. Over the last year, Sloan has siphoned $140,000 of corporate capital to fund private flights and luxury hotel suites with your lead investor, Julian." Julian choked on his champagne, his face draining of all color. "What the hell is this? This is slander." "It's not slander, Julian. It's an audit," Arthur said smoothly. He opened the folder. Inside were perfectly formatted, color-coded spreadsheets. "I didn't hack anything. I just read the geolocation metadata embedded in the photos Sloan texted me from her solo business trips and cross-referenced them with the tail numbers of Julian's private jet. A 100% match." I couldn't breathe. My lungs felt like they had been filled with cement. "Arthur, you've known for 3 months? Why didn't you say anything?" Arthur looked down at me, his eyes entirely devoid of warmth. It was the look of a man evaluating a completely worthless asset. "Because 3 months ago, Sloan, you were just a cheating wife," Arthur said quietly. "If I had confronted you then, we would have just gotten a divorce. You would have kept your company and your equity. I needed to let you lie to me. I needed to smile and kiss you goodbye, and let you keep falsifying those expense reports right up until this morning." He pointed a steady finger at the $50 million term sheet sitting under his folder. "Because this morning you signed a federally binding SEC disclosure claiming your company had 0 financial irregularities, 0 fraudulent expenditures, and no undisclosed liabilities, Arthur explained, his voice echoing in the dead-silent private dining room. By letting you lie for 3 more months, you didn't just break our marriage vows. You committed federal wire fraud and violated the absolute morality clause of your founder's agreement. The room erupted into chaos. The corporate lawyers immediately grabbed the term sheets, pulling them away from Julian. The board members were staring at me with absolute horror. I submitted the full forensic report to the SEC and the FBI's white-collar crime division at 4 p.m. today, Arthur announced over the shouting. He buttoned his suit jacket. The divorce papers were filed under fault guidelines this afternoon. The locks on our house have been changed. Good luck with the federal indictment, Sloan. Arthur didn't yell. He didn't cause a scene. He simply turned around and walked out of the Michelin star restaurant, leaving me completely surrounded by furious lawyers, a panicked lover, and the burning wreckage of my entire life. I sat frozen in my designer gown, realizing the horrifying truth. My husband hadn't been ignoring my lies for the last 90 days. He had been taking notes.